I think it's a fair assumption to say that everybody wants the most out of their console, whether it be new, old, or in between. And I think that's exactly what we're starting to get. Obviously, we're already almost a year into the generation. I mean, where does the time go? If you think about it, I was just thinking about that as I approach 40. Like, holy crap, where does the time go? But anyway, yeah, I think that getting the most and getting the best out of these consoles is going to be something that each of us kind of wants as the time goes forward, as years go forward, as months go forward, just because we pay so much money for these things. It's like, honestly, $500 a piece or whatever, that's a pretty good chunk of change if you think about it. And some of us buy multiple platforms, so that's over $1,000. That's not a cheap purchase. That's a luxury type purchase. And so I think that that's going to be something that most of us kind of expect things to perform well and for these things to work right. That's why, like, when video games come out and they're kind of janky or busted, we have something to say about it, because we're like, what's the deal with this? I mean, this is their job. It's always like, when you go to a store and something's not stocked right, or something's on the floor, they didn't do something right, it's like, this is these people's job. Take a little bit of pride into it. So I understand things happen, but still, when it comes down to it, developers' jobs are to develop games for these consoles, and those games should be in working order. So it's always a shame when that doesn't happen. But to see this in particular with the developers talking about the PlayStation 5 and what they were able to accomplish with it does give me hope for the future in terms of what they're going to be able to do, because a lot of people maybe were under the assumption, basically, that the Xbox might overtake the PlayStation in terms of what they're going to be doing, and I feel like that might not exactly be the case in terms of, like, performance. Like, there's already sort of a back and forth between the performances of PS5 and Xbox Series X, and a lot of times it's the same. But a lot of people just assume as time goes on that Xbox is just gonna, boop, and then all of a sudden be, that much better. I don't really see that happening, but it is nice to see that developers are, like, eking out all this amazing things that they can do with the PlayStation 5, so I love hearing about that. What's up, everybody? It's me, Crapgamer, with Crapgamer Reviews, back with another video. Please like, share, subscribe. I would appreciate that. So anyway, what's interesting here is listening to a first-party studio talk about the PlayStation 5. Like, if, for instance, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, the performance ray tracing mode was actually a last-minute discovery, which is pretty cool if you think about it. The Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart performance ray tracing mode that has been added to the game with the Day 1 patch was a last-minute discovery, according to Insomniac's director of core technology. Speaking with Axios, Mike Fitzgerald confirmed that the game was supposed to launch with only fidelity and regular performance mode, but towards the end of development, the studio discovered, thanks to the different teams working together, that more performance could be squeezed out of the PlayStation 5. There's no point, say, in the middle of production when we say, okay, engines locked, good luck, game team, finish your thing, and we're going to move on to the next thing. We have the whole core technology team focused on that quality of Ratchet & Clank until a month after it ships. Even without the impressive performance ray tracing mode, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart would have been among the best looking PlayStation 5 titles released so far. The game is so good that it is one, if not the reason to get a PlayStation 5, highlighted in many reviews. That's so far my game of the year personally, obviously. So yeah, I think that that's something that when you see this, you go, okay, well, it makes a lot of sense that they were able to do that. Like, for me personally, I think that it was pretty awesome that they were able to go out there and get this thing to perform up to snuff where everybody kind of expected it to be. And again, I think the expectation was there thanks to Spider-Man Miles Morales. And is there any studio out there that's working the way that that Insomniac Games is working right now? I think that maybe not. I think that that's probably something that we haven't seen in a while, and I do think that that's something that we'll continue to kind of look back on and go, oh, well, is this something that we're going to continue to see from development teams? Hopefully they can share that information, or do something to kind of get it to a certain type of point, because I do think we are kind of approaching that point where most people expect some kind of performance mode with the ability to keep ray tracing, because that's how I think probably 90% of the people played that game. So keeping that in mind, I think that was a very smart thing for them to actually accomplish. Square Enix was actually talking about the Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade and how that was optimized, and they did a really good job with that as well. A few Square Enix developers were interviewed to disclose how Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade took advantage of the PlayStation 5 console. Lead technical programmer explained how the load times were drastically diminished between hardware and software improvements. With PS5 having a solid-state drive, I/O speeds were no longer a bottleneck. Instead, time slicing and CPU load became the causes for longer load times. Because of that, we improved the lead flow by doing things like putting a unique serialization so that it would lessen the load during deserialization in areas specifically prone to bottlenecks. Through these efforts, we were able to go from approximately 12-second load times down to 6. While we were exploring options for further improvements, we realized the loader was insufficient. So we integrated Univision property serialization and I/O store, which were introduced with Unreal Engine 4.25. This title was developed based on Unreal 4.18, so it required some changes. But because of the implementations, we were able to shorten the time to about 2 seconds. So I feel I brought this improvement that it was well worth the investment. Square Enix also had to circumvent PS5's disk capacity limitations in order to inject high-resolution textures into Final Fantasy VII Remake Integrate. In the PlayStation 4 version, we had to forego using a higher quality format and high-resolution textures due to memory and disk capacity restrictions. However, we still didn't have enough disk capacity with Final Fantasy VII Remake Integrate to include a high-quality format and high-resolution textures. And so we integrated Oodle texture compression, and by using it in combination with Oodle Kraken, we were able to achieve a smaller file size on the PlayStation 5 version, even taking the higher resolution textures into account. Plus the increased memory compared to the PS4 and the improvement of the non-streamable MIP map, which ties into the response to the aforementioned question, also helps load textures. So they were actually able to use Oodle texture and Oodle Kraken, which is something those are proprietary to PlayStation and not really something that you can use on Xbox. So that was really cool that they were able to kind of use that and unify that to make that a better thing on PlayStation 5. Obviously, the increased memory is going to help something as well. They are also able to use the more high-resolution light maps, which improve the accuracy of lighting. So obviously, Final Fantasy VII Remake Integrate is currently only available on PlayStation 5 and 4, albeit without next-gen enhancements. So yeah, that's really cool. Some rumors suggest that maybe this game is getting pulled to a significant type of way that it's not going to be on Xbox. But I mean, we'll probably wait and see. I mean, to me, most people that have wanted to play it probably have already played it, so it's not really such a big deal at this particular time. But again, we'll have to kind of wait and see if it comes to Xbox. It's just one of those things. I understand why Sony did that with to be honest with you, I think I completely get why they did it, since Final Fantasy VII was traditionally known as a PlayStation franchise, and so that's something that you don't want to kind of get out there. You want all that nostalgia to help pay off, and given that this thing sold like 7-8 million copies on PlayStation, I think that it's pretty evident that it worked, sort of in the same way that Crash Bandicoot Collection worked, where I think that sold like 10 million copies on PlayStation. You play off of that nostalgia and you get people really invested into what you're doing, and then hopefully that all kind of works out. And at the end of the day, I feel like it works out well. It's a very pro PlayStation move, and I think that that's something that people kind of forget about all the time, is that these types of moves are always going to be good for the companies themselves and the companies involved, and that might not be good for somebody who's an Xbox fan or a PC fan. But if you're a PlayStation fan, you're thinking, well, yeah, because now I got content and I got something and a reason to actually own this piece of hardware. So I think that that's something of a very smart move, and I also think that that's something that all these companies do. Listen, Microsoft does it too. You got PC that does it too. Epic Game Store tries to get people with exclusive content. Microsoft does it. Of course, Microsoft does it with lesser stuff. But stuff like Stalker 2 or even The Medium or what have you, these are games that are traditionally they're not huge games, but Microsoft gives them a platform and maybe some time on stage, and I think that probably helps out a lot with some of these indies or whatever, and these smaller type games. So yeah, it's always fun to see the differences and the way that people kind of complain about being quote unquote anti-consumer, when there's not really anything anti-consumer about it. It's just more pro whatever it is. I mean, it is businesses at the end of the day, and I always go over this, and I was just going over this with somebody on Twitter yesterday, which is basically this person thought that there should be no such thing as exclusives, and I informed him, well, if there's no exclusives, people don't understand. You have 3 consoles. If I can play Xbox and Nintendo games on a PlayStation, why would I buy a Xbox and a Nintendo? right? And some people might feel differently, but for the most part, PlayStation is the most well-known bought brand in the world. And so, you would see 2 of the 3 die really quick. Like, you need that level of competition. People buy multiple platforms for the different experiences on there. So I think that's something that people kind of really forget about. And it's like, yeah, would McDonald's sell more Big Macs if they sold Big Macs at Burger King? For sure. But you know what else? They probably would lose out on stuff too, because people would be just go to maybe Burger King, get a Big Mac, and then get Burger King fries, so they're losing out on a fry sale or a Coke sale. You see what I'm saying? Like, you're gonna always get more if you can sell your particular thing, your particular hardware, and then the software as it goes along. So anyway, I'll link all this stuff. Let me know what you guys think about this incredible updates. Oodle Kraken PS5 on fire. Thanks for watching. Rack 'em up. Crapgamer out.